Beautiful human. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about a concept that I've been drilling in my mind over and over and over again to help you get more customers and clients without actually investing more of your time. And what I'm going to show you is something momentarily I'd like to call the asset flywheel, because as an entrepreneur myself, I was stuck in that same loop when I ran the agency or when I first started my coaching business, Modern Maker. You know, the first year turned around and did just under 300K, but everything in that first year required me to sort of spend my energy in order to make money. So I created this infinite loop from leads to clients. I was like on sales calls in the DMs. I was then delivering, and I was going, insert energy, make some money. Insert more energy, make some money. And that worked really well, right? Like, because the more that I showed up, the more work I did, the more money I made. But that sort of loop became really familiar. It was a safe zone for me. I held it with a lot of pride and a calendar that was stacked with what I call blue calendar syndrome, right? Like what Hormozian and his wife are very proud of too, like stacking all the calls, showing how busy they are. And that model works really, really well if you enjoy that grind. But for me, it started to feel a little misaligned, right? Because my income, the freedom, the upsides that I had was truly capped based on the amount of energy that I would input into this model that I created. So I would only have that much energy. So when it came to family time or my own time or, creativity or whatnot, I didn't have more to give, or I was capped at that potential. So if I wanted more income, I would have to give even more of myself, and I would always hit a ceiling on how far I would push, right? There's only enough hours I can not sleep, or enough days I could not eat and sleep and whatnot. So the way out of that is for me to sort of insert an asset in the middle of it. So all these little things here that you see on the screen now are assets that are created when I worked with clients, right? So instead of spending my energy directly, I could be basically taking these little assets that I created for clients and using them in this little asset flywheel. So I would, instead of having a to-do list, I would start seeing these things as assets that I could leverage. And that was the biggest unlock for me, because I would spend all this energy for some, creating something, and then I would leave it on the table, right? I would leave it in my Google Drive and it would collect dust where it should have collected some dollars, right? So whether I was in that room or not, the moment I created assets to leverage, not assets as a to-do list to deliver for clients, it gave me that light bulb, because that asset could have been, let's say, an offer that I wrote in text format, some sort of funnel that I created that liquidated ads for myself or for a client. Could be a low ticket funnel that has a front end offer that I'm selling. It could be a system or some sort of workflow that I created with Zapier on onboarding sheet or a sequence. It could have just been a Loom video or something like one of these that I created to help them write better LinkedIn content or better email subject lines. That energy that I put in when I started recording it and creating almost like a storage box for it, I would pour in that time, I would build that thing once, and then it would spit out cash or warm up leads and create customers and clients for me, depending on where I put that asset. So in a very similar way, if you want to think about it, you could go out there and buy a house. Like, I've also invested in property and I rent it out, and basically the person who pays me rent gives me leverage, right? Because it doesn't require any more of my time, right? So instead of me having to go out there and buy this really expensive property and then rent it out or, flip the business or whatever, I am now monetizing my own energy, my own ideas, or all those big ideas, all those little things, all that execution and the effort, I am storing and creating an asset flywheel. But this sort of shift takes a bit of time, right? There's a slower feedback loop. I'm not really sure what my market will say. And most people aren't ready for that gap, They go back to comfort. They go back to grinding, to sending DMs, to getting on sales calls, handling objections, running a sales-driven business instead of a marketing-driven business. But this to me is a lot more than just an asset flywheel. It is a lifestyle, right? Because if I can hold myself in that transition period and start building assets, I always say the more assets you build, the more offers you make. And that sort of creates a little seesaw. Create asset, create more customers by making more offers. And the more offers I make, the more offers I can make by bundling and unbundling them, right? And the game changes once you start stacking assets that build leverage, because what happens, I'm a big fan of Naval Ravikant, and when I read his book, The Almanac of Naval, he talks about getting computers to do the heavy lifting for you while you sleep, right? So now that means your income is not limited to how many hours you work, and you get paid for your thinking. And that to me is true leverage. So you shift from becoming a salesperson or a marketing person to an architect, somebody that takes little bits of the puzzle, puts them together in order to build that leverage. And you build that thing once and it never stops giving. Like to me, my little asset flywheel that I call the micro snack cartel, I'll drop it down below. It's a website called swipemymojo.com, was a Google Doc offer I created in 2023, and to this day has brought 107K in once-off revenue, and people still buy it every single day. I just put it on my LinkedIn, put it on YouTube, put it on Instagram, put it everywhere, and it just brings in more money because I get people to click over there, right? And now I've run some ads to it, so I do 95% organic, 5% paid. All of my ad spend is liquidated because I created one of these assets, right? And you can never go back. That is what I mean by leverage. So you take that asset that you created, right, for your clients. See, I've color coded them here for you, and you make those assets work for you. So this again could be that doc offer, that template, that Loom video, it doesn't matter what it is. And you basically grab it and you put it up the asset flywheel and feed it to your leads, right? You see? So what is happening here is I'm grabbing that asset, putting it to work, going to the top of the funnel where leads come through, right? Or it could be your followers on whatever platform you have. And we start to basically post content to show context of this asset, right? So these are my little assets over here. I primarily use LinkedIn and Instagram for my leads, and I'm talking to them, right? All of these followers start to contextualize my assets. So what I've done, quote unquote, and I can drop the video with more context, is I had 4 big ideas that assets came out of through my client work. And those big ideas were called, for example, power writing. That is writing to shift beliefs and speak to the heart and not the mind. It's basically writing, in essence, to get someone to change the way they believe in something, do something by showing them the what, not the how. So they need you right now. And being really specific by dog whistling, essentially, to them at a frequency that only that type of animal can hear. And that's what I took that idea. I created assets. They were workshops. They were templates for my existing clients. And then I started going online and talking about power writing. Another one is my micro snack cartel, which came from me watching the Netflix series Griselda and Pablo Escobar. They gave people micro snacks and then gave them bigger snacks in whatever context that was. And we won't get into that today. But that's what I do. I give my leads micro snacks, get them to be indoctrinated in my world, create customers, and then from customers, I turn them into clients with bigger snacks. Another one is my proximity ladder, which I can also drop in the description below, where I can ascend existing clients by marketing to them vertically and taking them into closer proximity to me. The closer they get to me, the more they pay. But can you see how all of these concepts were assets that I created for my clients so they could become modern makers? Another asset, a transformation, an identity they become. And I get online and I create content that creates context for these leads. So they start chirping, right? Start going, oh, I understand this now. I've taken Jacob's asset. It could be a lead magnet at this point. It could just be a post. This is word of mouth. So they can start talking about it as well, or somebody used this asset and told their friend. But now my asset got to work, right? At that lead part of the funnel. So if we go back here, just so you can see it, we've taken that asset from here and we've fed it to our leads to give them context, right? And we've converted them now into hot, warm leads. Now, what I've done as well is I can then take another asset. Now that they're leads, maybe they opted into my email list, right? By clicking that swipe my mojo funnel, or they got that free training on one of my assets. Now I can offer them, again, what did I just say? The asset, my micro snack cartel, the big idea, a small snack, which again is an asset, right? So what I do with my swipe my mojo funnel is I give them my Google Doc for $9, right? And that's a very small snack. Again, an asset I created for my clients. And what happens here is now I've put the asset in the customer level and converted a lead to a customer by putting a price tag on this little snack. And then I could also have another asset that supplements it, right? So I can have an order bump or an upsell or whatever that may be, give that asset superpowers and create an even bigger snack, right? At the customer level. And then basically now my assets are working for me and building me leverage, right? And that's what I mean by asset flywheel. Then what we do is we go down to the client level, right? I can also use those assets or little messages. If we go back a minute over here, send them a quick Google Doc or send them a quick message and turn those customers into clients. So now we're back into client territory, right? And the funnel feeds itself. So what we've created is an asset flywheel. We've built leverage, right? By instead of using energy in order to make money, we've stuck the word assets in the middle and we've gone from energy to asset creation, and assets make us leveraged money. So I wanted to leave you with that concept today. Hopefully you learned something. And the best part of it is you can use existing assets and you can recycle existing assets to feed the concepts and the big ideas to your leads or your followers to create leads, then your leads to create customers and your customers to create clients. And this is how you run a marketing first business, not a sales driven business. So you too can become a modern maker. So if you like that, hit subscribe or ask any questions down below. I would love to sort of answer them for you, and I'll see you in the next video.